Welcome. You are listening to the Overseas Life Redesign podcast, where you'll hear fun, relaxed, and inspirational interviews with people who are really living the dream. I'm Dawn Fleming, an attorney turned alchemist, and your host for the show, coming to you from the tropical island paradise of Isla Mujeres, Mexico. Listen to conversations with courageous souls who've stepped out of their comfort zone and designed a new way of life. They'll share their experiences, wisdom, and offer practical steps you can take to redesign your life overseas. Listen and you'll believe. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. All right. I am here today with Theresa Stark, and I am excited about doing an interview with her and kind of her overseas life experiences. Thank you, Theresa, for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm happy to do it and happy to virtually meet you.
Yeah. And we were talking, her last name is the same as my great-grandparents. So we were just talking about whether we might be cousins. So that would be fun. We'll have to do some more digging. But anyway, so why don't we just start, Theresa, with your overseas life experiences and kind of how that all came about.
I grew up military. My father was in the Navy. So when I was about 4 years old, we moved to Scotland. And, so that was kind of my early life. We lived in Scotland until I was almost in middle school. And although there it was a little bit different, because when I came back to the United States, I was several years younger. When in Scotland, you start first grade or primary school at age 4. So, and then I had a little bit different skill set with metrics and things like that. So, my growing up in Scotland was, just again kind of the start of my overseas life. We moved around within Scotland quite a bit, every 6 months. We went from there to San Diego, and we lived there for several years. We did a short stay in Campeche, Mexico, and then we moved to Minnesota. And I thought my parents were crazy because I was definitely not a fan of that cold weather.
No.
So that was definitely not. And then we stayed put, really until I graduated college. And then I sort of ventured out on my own and started taking, travel as an adult and doing my own things from a travel perspective.
And I know you probably didn't have anything to compare it to, but what was growing up in Scotland like? Was that, did that impact you?
Again, I didn't have anything to compare it to, but then, when we moved to the States, and in retrospect, definitely some differences. For one, we had our milk delivered every morning. The little bottles, the wide neck bottles that people probably think of from the 50s, where, you'd go out, you'd get your milk, you'd take the cream off the top that you used, and we'd shake it up and make our own butter or use it for coffee. We would have tea time every day, so everything shut down, and even we would get, take our little break from school, and then we'd have later classes. It rained every single day. Having galoshes and an umbrella and a raincoat was just a given, especially in Scotland where we were. The cows, the haricus, as they call them, the cows in Scotland are hairy. They have long hair. And again, these are not things I realized until many years later when I came back to when I came to the States and got older and was like, hey, wait a minute, we don't do these things. Things are a little bit different. And I guess when I think back, I kind of compare it to, it was just a much slower pace and lifestyle compared to, what was happening in the States. And I've been back and I still think it's very different. For example, my mother and I took a trip back there, and we were staying in a small town in a bed and breakfast, and we were like, how could we go about and see the town? And they said, oh, the postman will be here any minute. You can just ride with him. And that's what we did for the day. We hopped on the back of the postman's truck, and he became our tour guide for the day. And
how
took us to
fun
a
is
pub
that?
for lunch. Yeah, it was really cool. So I think it's just a very different pace and lifestyle that, again, I didn't realize until I was quite a bit older.
Sure. Well, one of the things that comes up, I guess, too, and why this is kind of a nice interview, a little bit of a change from the folks that I talk to that go places when they're an adult, is one of the concerns that people have is, oh my gosh, what about the kids? Should I move them to a different country? Are they, going to get as good of an education? Like, how's that going to impact them? And so you speaking as an adult, I mean, it sounds like, you had kind of the idyllic childhood where you did have that slower pace, maybe, an environment that was, didn't exist in the United States anymore, but was still more low key and laid back.
Yeah, definitely. And it sets a foundation too. I think for my later lifestyle and being a military kid and moving around, to whether it was different bases, or just, different areas of the country, and, having that shuffle, it, I guess, gave me the foundation that it's okay. And it's not scary to pick up and move, which is, led me into, my adult travels. I traveled quite a bit on a vacation standpoint, but then in 2017, I took the big plunge and I basically packed up everything I owned, put it in storage, got rid of a lot of things. I actually gave my car to my son, and I left the country and traveled for the entire year, from January 1st to January 1st. And
wow, good for you. That sounds fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, what gave me the ability to kind of get a feel for a lot of different places. Cause we would be in a new country every month. And I actually did it through, it was a program or a group that I applied. So I wasn't completely on my own either. So I had a little bit of guidance and handholding, from that sense. And, they set me up where I had a living space or a place to stay, in safe areas, and then would also have a workspace, a dedicated workspace, so I could work remotely and that sort of thing. And so it helped in that sense. And then once I did that, it gave me kind of the sense of freedom. Okay, now I know what I'm doing. I've been handheld a little bit, and then I was able to do a lot more traveling on my own. Beyond that.
Sure. So you were not by yourself? You went with someone else?
When I did the year, it was a program, and
okay.
and there has since been several programs that have popped up that do that, where they will assist you and you basically pay a stipend. It's almost like paying your rent. It's more cost effective, obviously, than the United States. But they will help you set up, your rent, your living space, your workspace.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't know there was such a thing available. So I might have to bug you for the link to that type of a service, because I think people would really like that. That sounds awesome.
There is. It's the program I did. It was called Remote Year, and there has since been other programs that have popped up. I mean, obviously, with COVID, some of them have had to take hiatus, but there was ones that were geared towards younger people, ones that are geared towards the more mature people, retirees, and so forth. And some are a full year, some are 3 or 4 months. So there's a lot of options out there for people who really just want to get their feet wet and aren't quite sure if overseas long-term lifestyle is for them.
Well, but what a great way to try it out. I mean, I just finished up my first How to Live in Paradise Without Worrying About the Price Tag workshop. And that's one of the things that we talk about is how do you make the transition? What are some different ways of sort of testing the waters before you take the plunge? And that sounds like an excellent way to do it. Really takes a lot of guesswork out of it, right?
The guesswork, the fear, the big questions of how do I do this, how do I do that, even some of the language factors. If you're going to areas where you don't necessarily speak the language, you have they call a city manager, someone you can question. What are the best restaurants? What are the do's and don'ts? What's safe? What's not safe? Can I take a taxi? Is it better to Uber? Things like that. And so, yeah, it definitely is helpful.
Wow. So where did you go?
We started in Mexico City, and then we traveled down through Colombia, Peru, all the way through South America. We would have kind of a home base in each country that we visited. And then I would do a lot of side travel, my weekends or times that I had off, and I would kind of book from there, because once you're in a country, it's, cheaper to travel within that country. And then we went over to Europe. We were in Prague, Italy. And again, I did a 1 month kind of trip up on my own, using the trains, and traveled all about. And then we were in Asia, and we did Bali and Malaysia. And, again, we would travel on our own. We did Kyoto, Japan, and those are the three base points that we stayed in.
Wow, girl, you covered some ground.
Yeah, definitely. Made the most of my mileage, so all the travel that we did, and we would use those, use the travel reward cards and things like that, and, build upon that. And that's where you'd take those little side trips and those little extras that you wanted to do, the fun things that you wanted to do within each of those countries, and that sort of thing. So again, you can make the most as you're traveling around, using points and things.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. In fact, I published an Insider's Guide to Traveling the World for free, and that was one of the tips in there, amongst a few other little secrets. But yeah, that's a great way to go to do that.
Definitely.
Cool. So what was your? I guess were there any standout experiences during that year that you care to share with us?
There were so many. And I guess that's the thing with experiences. Sometimes it's the people, sometimes it's the place, sometimes it's the moment. I definitely feel like there were little pieces of favorite things in every country. I really, really loved Peru. And part of that might have been that I was able to, really, I had an extensive amount of time off while I was in Peru. So I did a lot, and I went to a lot of very remote little places. Kind of one really neat, and one of the best pictures, and where I met some really great people, was a little town called Huacachina, and it literally is an oasis in the middle of a desert. Like, if you've ever pictured an oasis, like this little 7-block town that had a tiny little lake in the middle of it, and beautiful sparkling lights if you were, traveling through the sand dunes. And it was just probably one of the most unique places I've ever been, because it just so off the beaten path. And one of the things I was able to do, visiting that town, is because it is surrounded by sand dunes, is we did the sand dune buggies, went sand surfing. So actually on a surfboard going down these dunes.
Really?
Yeah, it was quite interesting. And then I went to an area called Paracas, that it's where the desert meets the ocean, and it's just kind of, again, you feel like, wow, I am really in a special place, because from one side it's all you can see is ocean, and the other side is all you can see is desert. So that was very, very cool. And then I also visited Lake Titicaca, which borders Bolivia and Peru, and there is a tribal people that really truly live in the middle of the lake, in these floating islands that they create out of basically it's like a straw, or these woven together vegetation, and it builds these little islands. And so we had taken a boat out and visited one of the islands, and basically the president of the island invited us into his hut, one of my companions I was traveling with. And so I got to visit the president of Lake Titicaca and sit in his hut and take a look at his wife's crafts and things that they had done. And it was really one of the neatest experiences. I have to say that's one of them. There was so many, but again, that was just a really memorable period, because I got to do a lot of different things and just had a lot of really, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this moments.
Yeah, really unique cultural experiences. It sounds like things that you just don't come across in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Well, I think this is a good time to take a break. I'm going to break for a second, and we'll be right back.
Isla Mujeres is a Caribbean jewel off the coast of Cancun. Castilito del Caribe warmly invites you to enjoy our spectacular oceanfront villa, located in the heart of El Centro and a short walk to Playa Norte, which is ranked one of the top 10 beaches in the world. With an ocean view of crystal clear turquoise waters overlooking both the Caribbean and Cancun city skyline, we offer a fabulous location for you to enjoy all the peace and tranquility you're looking for on vacation, while also taking in all the excitement the island has to offer, with activities either in walking distance or a golf cart day excursion away. Please visit CastilitoCaribe.com, www.CastilitoCaribe.com. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Integrity Vacation Property Management. Trust, truth, results. From buyer's representative services to rental market analysis, staging, marketing, and full-service property management, achieving your goals is our top priority. Visit our website at www.integrityvpm.com and get our free guide, Self-Manage or Hire, a property owner's checklist of issues to consider. Contact us for a free consultation to see if we can help you maximize the return on your investments. Integrity VPM, raising the bar in vacation property management.
Okay, I'm back with Theresa Stark, and just hearing about her fascinating year off. What was it like kind of going back in? Well, first of all, did you return to the United States after that year, or where did you go after that?
I did. I returned to the United States. Yes, and I know where we're going with this, and it was such a mixed bag of feelings, because initially it was like, oh wow, it's over, and I can take a really hot shower, and a lot of those creature
comforts, yeah,
that sometimes you don't have, that a toilets that flush and have toilet seats on every toilet, or I can just go and to a drive-through, or just the little things. So initially it was like, okay, I'm home, but then there was a real period of almost depression, like, okay, I hit that climactic part of my life, like, okay, I traveled the world, and now what? And it was actually kind of different, because because that's where I was left. I was like, well, now what? I've reached that pinnacle that a lot of people strive for. And for some reason, it wasn't in my head, until recently that, well, wait a minute, why does it have to end? Because it really doesn't. I mean, if you do things properly, you really can live that dream life. And, you've been an inspiration through the class that I just took with you.
Oh, great.
And yeah, because I started thinking, well, why can't people
Why not?
just live that way? Yeah, exactly. Because you really can if you, again, take the steps, do your homework, do your research, have, design your life basically. And,
yes. Be intentional.
So that is the stage. Yeah, that's the stage that I'm in, right now, is to design your life, for the long-term stage. And, so getting back, it was kind of a good and bad. It was nice to see your friends and your family and the creature comforts, but then it was okay. But now what?
Just a little bit of a letdown after achieving such a big goal. Well, now you said you were working during this period too, though, right? So it wasn't all fun and games.
Yeah. I would, to hold my job Monday through Friday. I mean, I'm fortunate that I do have a job that with a phone and computer at that time, I could really work anywhere. When we were in Asia, of course, because most of my work was done in U.S. time, I was working crazy kind of hours. Mm-hmm. And again, I would have to kind of set my schedule around that, or even in Europe and things like that. But, again, it's just balancing it out and making that plan and saying, okay, this is how I'm going to get that accomplished. And
sure,
if you plan it, you can do it.
So are you working at the same place that you were when you were traveling? Or are you doing something?
I am same industry, different place. Because my background is in media, marketing, advertising. And so a lot of things I do have been freelance or project based. And, so I have transitioned to another organization, but still doing similar type things.
And is that pretty easy to do from a location, remote location for the most part?
As long as you have a dedicated internet and phone. I traveled with a VoIP phone. I set myself up with that just so I would not have to deal with spotty
cell coverage,
data and things like that. And again, I worked in a lot of co-working spaces, which you can find all over the world these days, and even more so outside of the United States. I mean, they've really just started to become more popular in the U.S., but I found especially in Central and South America and Europe, whether they're internet cafes or really actual co-working spaces, you can always find a great place to work. And sometimes it's, a little beach cafe that it just happens to have Wi-Fi, or sometimes it's like a dedicated co-working space.
Right. And I'm sure they're just becoming more and more popular with everything that's going on, that we'll be seeing more of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, who knows, we don't have a crystal ball, but I expect a lot of people, if they've been successful working remotely or, during this challenging time, even more and more companies will see the value and the cost savings of, wow, people can be just as productive and sometimes even more productive when they're doing things kind of, around their own schedule. And then you don't have those overhead costs either.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts the commercial real estate market, right? All this excess space now that people realize we really don't need to pay for this. So you're in South Florida, Southeast Florida, is that correct?
Yes. Palm Beach area is where I live, and I work in Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh, okay. And so you've been there, and that's where you went when you returned from your trip?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So you've been there for a couple of years now since you've been back.
Yes.
And any ideas where you think you might head head out to next?
So I am really contemplating final destination, Costa Rica, and the Jaco, Manuel Antonio area. Costa Rica for a long time has been a spot for expats. They actually have really great programs set up, almost to kind of guide you through it. You inspired me. I mean, I'm got kind of three places that I'm leaning towards, but my top two are going to be probably Costa Rica or the Tulum, Acapulco area in Mexico as again kind of final retirement, long-term living destinations.
Okay. And was Costa Rica one of the places that you traveled to on your year? During your year?
That was not. Oddly enough, it was not. But Costa Rica is one of the places that I have traveled to on my own pretty extensively.
Oh, okay.
I went there just on a trip long before my year of travel, and I've been back about 8 times. So there's just so much diversity there in the culture, the ecosystems. I mean, you've got beaches, mountains, deserts, cloud forests. And they're just it's a very, very educated country. There's just a lot of positives, and people have been retiring there for years, so they've got some really great programs, and they kind of make it easy for you.
Sure. Yeah, no, I've heard that from a lot of folks. We spent a limited amount of time there, and you're right. Yeah, there's a lot of diversity. We spent little over a week in Golfito, and maybe it's just the time of year, but I think they get like 150 inches of rain a year. It just seemed like everything was green, like even moss green everywhere, and then other places not so much like that. So yeah, there's certainly something for everybody in Costa Rica, and it is
yeah.
Popular
and you can move around because their green seasons on the coast change, and they do actually call it their green season. And they get a ton of rain in like a 3-4 month period. But if it's raining on one side, you can go to the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, cool. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share about your experience?
No, other than, I mean, if anybody's thinking about it, I say just do it. Just do it smart. Do your research. There's so many groups out there, and people that are of this mindset that you can ask questions of, and you can almost build yourself a little friendship network before you go. And I think that always helps because at least you have a go-to or somebody you can call. So I mean, whether you're looking at going to several places or one place, with the internet you can reach out and find so many people that are of the travel mindset that are more than willing to help and answer questions and give you guidance and direction.
Well, and that's good advice, because like when we sailed, from Southern California and took our big trip, that community was so important. We had found, we joined a sailing association that was global and had like cruising stations all over the place, and places where you could go in and they would help you if you needed, parts or provisions or what have you. And so that's definitely the case, is to get in that network of folks that can be there for you and be part of your support system. So that's great. Well, good deal. Well, what a great story. You've had some amazing experiences. The only thing I didn't get a chance to ask you about, maybe I'll do that before we wrap up, is your time in Mexico. You said you did spend some time in Mexico. Was that, how long of a period was that? Was that impactful at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And surprisingly, so when I learned all the destinations we were going to be going, on my 12-month venture, and Mexico City was actually the first place, that was like our meeting spot, was Mexico City, and we spent a month there. No, we spent a whole month there. And surprisingly, because it was one of my, like, it wasn't, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm super excited to go to Mexico City. But it ended up being probably one of my most favorite places. It definitely in my top 5.
Okay.
And, and I heard some things about Mexico City. Oh, it can be so dangerous. And of course it can, but so can Miami Beach.
Well, yeah, any big city, right?
Any city. But it actually, I ended up loving Mexico City. I loved the people, the culture, the food, the street tacos. I mean, I must have ate 3 tacos a day every day for 30 days. And, just the museums, the parks, some of the most amazing parks with castles. I mean, it wasn't the Mexico that I was thinking of, like the beaches and things like that. But it was actually really, really wonderful. And during my month, I actually met a girlfriend in Cancun. We did a couple days in Cancun and, traveled around Mexico a little bit, but Mexico City itself was absolutely fantastic, and someplace I would definitely go back to.
Yeah. And then did you say you lived in Mexico when you were a child too? Was that one of the places that you were with your parents?
Campeche. Yes, Campeche. For a very short period of time.
Oh, okay.
We lived in Campeche, which is, it's kind of on the Caribbean coast, not
Sure.
too far from like Riviera Maya,
Sure.
and all that.
Okay. So that wasn't a long enough period of time really to have a huge impact on you.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, that's perfect. I think we'll end it there. Again, Theresa, I really appreciate your time. It's always great to hear different perspectives and, different experiences that people have. And I am thrilled to hear about that resource that you said that will do the planning for you. I think that's a really great way to start the process.
Yeah. And I'll get you the links for those so you can share them with your audience. And I'll share a couple different ones that cater to different age groups and things like that. Because the one I went on, I was definitely one of the we'll say the more mature individuals in the group.
Right. That's okay. More wise than the others.
Wise, yes.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to end it there.
Thanks, Dawn.
This episode of the Overseas Life Redesign podcast was brought to you by our sponsors. Thanks for tuning in. Did you love this episode of the Overseas Life Redesign podcast? Then please subscribe to our show and leave us a nice review. It's very much appreciated. We invite you to visit www.overseasliferedesign.com. We'd also love for you to become part of our OLR community on Facebook. Thank you for listening.